All right, in the T20 World Cup, you've got 20 teams all gunning for that trophy, right? But here's the thing, not all matches are created equal. Some are just bigger. Today, we're going to break down how one of the biggest rivalries in all of sports has turned into the most critical match of the entire group stage. So you might be thinking, how is that even possible? I mean, it's a round robin, isn't it? Shouldn't every single game be worth the same? Well, yeah, in theory. But when things get tight, when qualification is on the line, the answer is a big, fat no. And that, of course, brings us to the big one, India versus Pakistan. Look, this isn't just about the usual bragging rights. Not this time. The result of this one game, it could literally decide the fate of both teams and shake up the final standings for the entire group. Okay, so let's get into it. To really get why this one match is so unbelievably important, you first got to understand the whole journey. The path every single team has to take to even get a sniff of that final. So the whole tournament is basically broken down into 3 stages. First up, you have the group stage. 20 teams, 4 groups. Simple. You've got to finish in the top 2 of your group to move on. If you do, you make it to the Super 8s. From there, those 8 teams are split into 2 new groups, and again, only the top 2 from each of those groups make it to the knockouts. That's your semifinals, and then the grand final. That first hurdle, getting out of your group, it's a huge deal. So how do you do it? How do teams lock in one of those top 2 spots? Well, it all boils down to a pretty straightforward point system. It's really simple, actually. You win, you get 2 points. You lose, you get 0. If the match gets rained out or something, it's a no result, and each team gets 1 point. But, and this is a big but, if the match is a tie, we go to a super over. That crazy 1-over shootout to decide a winner. And whoever wins that gets the full 2 points. No splitting the points here. Okay, so what if 2 teams have the same number of points? This is where things get really interesting. The main tiebreaker is something called net run rate, or NRR. Basically, it's a fancy way of measuring how dominant you've been. It looks at how fast you score your runs compared to how fast your opponents score against you. So a really high NRR, that means you're not just winning, you're absolutely smashing teams. The official rulebook has a very specific pecking order for tiebreakers. First, they look at who has the most wins. Simple enough. If wins are equal, then they look at net run rate. And only if, by some miracle, the wins and the NRR are exactly the same, do they look at who won the game between the 2 teams. But that order is super, super important. So let's bring this all back to Group A right now, because this is where all these rules are coming together to create a real pressure cooker situation. So here are the standings, and right away you see it. India and Pakistan locked at the top. 2 matches played, 2 matches won, 4 points each. They're the clear favorites to go through, no doubt. But take a look at that last column, the NRR. That right there is where the real story is. And this number just says it all, doesn't it? India's net run rate is a whopping plus 3.050. I mean, that's huge. And it's all thanks to those massive wins they had. Now, Pakistan's NRR is pretty good too. It's a healthy plus 0.932, but it's not even close, right? That massive number is India's ace in the hole. All right, so keeping all of that in mind, let's look ahead. What actually happens based on the result of that huge February 15th match? What does it mean for each team's shot at the Super 8s? Okay, let's run through the scenarios. Scenario 1, India wins, they go to 6 points. With that crazy NRR they have, that pretty much punches their ticket to the Super 8s. Done. Pakistan is left on 4 points, probably needing a win in their last match. Okay, now let's flip it. Scenario 2, Pakistan wins. They jump to 6 points and are virtually through to the next round. India stays on 4 points, and all of a sudden their last game becomes an absolute must-win, high-pressure situation. So you see, the big takeaway here is that, yeah, winning is the goal, but how you win can be almost as important, especially early in the tournament. It's about more than just getting those 2 points. And this quote right here, it nails the strategy perfectly. When you get a massive win early on, you build a cushion for yourself. Think about those big wins India had. They weren't just good for team spirit. They were banking NRR. It's like putting points in the bank for a rainy day, a safety net in case you slip up later. And that's exactly where India's big advantage lies right now, because their NRR is so high, they can actually afford to lose to Pakistan and still be in a great spot. They could probably still get through with a win in their final game. For Pakistan, the breathing room is a lot smaller. The margins for error are tiny. So really, it all boils down to this. The T20 World Cup is way more than just a game of cricket. It's a game of math. When India and Pakistan walk out onto that field, they're playing for more than just a win. They're playing for points, for run rate, for their entire tournament lives. So the question is, in a tournament of such fine margins, who's going to master the math?